There is a video on TikTok with nearly 2 million views. The title is, "I drove the cheap Chinese cars that are illegal in the USA." Now, I know why. The creator is based in Massachusetts. He did not expect it to perform the way it did, but he has figured out the formula now. The second I mention a Chinese car, the videos skyrocket. He says, "Americans want these cars, they just do." That sentence is the story. And the gap between what Americans want and what their government will allow them to buy is widening in ways that go well beyond consumer frustration, into trade policy, industrial strategy, national security, and a cultural reckoning about what the United States is actually protecting when it keeps these cars out. Start with the price problem, because without it, nothing else makes sense. The average price of a new car in the United States is now approaching $50,000. New car prices have risen 26% since 2020 alone. Used car prices have climbed alongside them, averaging over $25,500. Meanwhile, the average transaction price for a new electric vehicle reached $57,245 in mid-2025. In an economy where inflation has already compressed household budgets from every direction and financing costs have made borrowing more expensive, the American car market has effectively priced out a significant and growing share of the people who need vehicles to live and work. Now consider what is sitting on the other side of the tariff wall. The BYD Seagull, a fully electric hatchback with a rotating touchscreen, wireless charging, and a 4-airbag system, lists for around $13,000 in China. The Xiaomi SU7, which Marques Brownlee reviewed and called a car that would crush the U.S. market at $42,000, saw its company deliver over 410,000 vehicles in 2025, remarkable for a brand that shipped its first car in April 2024. The Zeekr 9X, which car influencer Forrest Jones with 8 million TikTok followers called the most powerful SUV on the planet, is not available in the United States at any price. This is what economists call a suppressed market. The demand is visible, measurable, and growing. The supply is legally blocked, and the people on the wrong side of that equation are getting louder. To understand how China built cars that Americans are craving, you have to understand the strategic sequence that produced them. For decades, the global auto industry was dominated by the United States, Europe, Japan, and South Korea. China wanted in, and the price it charged foreign automakers for access to its domestic market was knowledge transfer. Any company that wanted to sell cars in China had to form a joint venture with a state-owned Chinese partner, effectively teaching Chinese manufacturers how the industry worked from the inside. At first, the output was unremarkable. Then Chinese automakers made a rational decision. They were never going to beat the incumbents at combustion engines, a technology refined over a century. So they chose a different game. The Chinese government declared electric vehicles a national strategic priority. Capital flowed. BYD, which started as a battery company, pivoted to cars and became the world's top EV seller in 2025, moving 2.26 million battery electric vehicles and surpassing Tesla's 1.64 million for the first time. Xiaomi entered the market from smartphones because cars were becoming software-defined products. Zeekr emerged from Geely as a premium brand targeting global markets. The common thread across all of them is speed. Chinese manufacturers can design, develop, and produce a new vehicle in 18 months versus 3 to 5 years for Western competitors. And they did not just replicate, they iterated. Engineers who have torn down Chinese EVs alongside Tesla's report that Chinese manufacturers absorbed Tesla's manufacturing innovations, mega castings, simplified body structures, reduced part counts, and improved on them brand by brand. It is not the big that eats the small, it is the fast that eats the slow. And right now, the Chinese auto industry is the fastest moving force in the global market. Before we go further, if this kind of analysis on trade, technology, and what it costs consumers when governments pick industrial winners is what you come here for, subscribe now. We cover this every week. The US response has been a wall, And the wall is serious. In 2024, the Biden administration imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese EV imports. It then went further, effectively banning the import of any vehicle containing software or hardware linked to China or Russia, citing national security. The combined effect is that Chinese EVs are legally impossible to sell in the United States under current rules. Chinese automakers have not signaled near-term plans to enter the U.S. market, and for good reason, there is no viable path in. The national security argument is not manufactured. Connected vehicles collect enormous amounts of data, location patterns, behavioral information, biometric data, and a car running on Chinese software and hardware represents a genuine surveillance and infrastructure vulnerability. Think about what a fleet of millions of Chinese connected vehicles on American roads would mean. Real-time location data on citizens, commute patterns, proximity to military installations, behavioral profiles built over years. These are not hypothetical concerns. The U.S. intelligence community has raised them explicitly, and the policy response reflects a genuine assessment of risk, not just protectionism dressed up in security language, but the security argument and the affordability crisis are both real, and they are on a collision course. The longer the wall holds, the more visibly and painfully it costs ordinary Americans. A policy that protects national security while pricing working families out of reliable transportation is not a sustainable political equilibrium. Something eventually gives. New car prices are out of reach for a growing share of Americans. Used cars average $25,500. And the cars that would solve the affordability problem, technologically sophisticated, well-built, genuinely priced for working people, are being sold everywhere else in the world and are flooding American phones daily. The cultural dimension of this matters, and it is shaping the policy conversation in ways that traditional trade coverage misses. On TikTok and YouTube, the dominant frame is not about trade deficits or manufacturing jobs. It is about affordability and access. Influencers are showing Americans $13,000 electric cars with premium interiors and asking on camera why the people watching cannot have them. The engagement spikes every time. A trend that has been labeled China maxing, featuring Chinese infrastructure, technology, and consumer products, has been described not as a love letter to Beijing, but as an indictment of America. People are not rooting for China. They are frustrated with what is available and affordable at home. BYD is building factories in Hungary, Brazil, Turkey, and Thailand. Chinese EVs are taking market share in Mexico, across Latin America, across Southeast Asia, and increasingly in Europe. The global pie is finite. Every point of share China captures comes directly out of what Toyota, Ford, Volkswagen, and General Motors were counting on, and the wall keeping Chinese cars out of the U.S. market protects American automakers' domestic share today while doing nothing to stop what is happening in every other market on Earth. European automakers have responded differently, openly pursuing technology partnerships and licensing arrangements with Chinese companies, adopting battery technologies and software platforms developed in China rather than treating the entire industry as an adversary. American companies have been far more reluctant, constrained by regulatory pressure and genuine security concerns about technology dependency. But that reluctance carries a compounding cost. Every year inside the tariff wall is a year Chinese manufacturers spend iterating, improving, and expanding into every other market on Earth while the competitive gap quietly widens. Here is where this lands for anyone thinking about the longer arc. The tariff wall may be justified policy. The national security concerns are real and should not be dismissed. But consumer pressure is not going away. It is being amplified every day by algorithms that have discovered Chinese car content drives engagement like almost nothing else in the automotive space. Americans who have been priced out of home ownership, stretched by healthcare costs, and now facing $50,000 average car prices, are watching $13,000 electric vehicles drive around on their screens and asking a question that does not have a comfortable answer. Whether the wall holds, softens, or eventually falls depends on decisions not yet made. about trade relationships, technology licensing, manufacturing investment, and how long political coalitions around industrial protection can hold together against consumer coalitions around affordability. What is not uncertain is the demand. Americans want these cars, and the longer that demand goes unmet, the louder the conversation around it is going to get. Thanks for watching. If this changed how you are thinking about the EV race, trade policy, and what it actually costs American consumers to keep Chinese cars out, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.